classes with the guys most of the time during the week. One of the things we're able to do here is we're actually able to interact with them. And well, once you get to meet somebody in person, talk with them in person, the communication bandwidth increases. So this has been great. The people that I've met that are also trading, that I'm also in the Rebel Pit with, and we are exchanging text messages back and forth, the camaraderie is just excellent. So I recommend anytime they have an in-person event, you got to come and attend.
Join us this December in Miami, Florida for Market Rebellion Live.
That's the official. It's all official now, guys.
Yep. We've officially started the Rebel's Edge.
Yeah.
Welcome, folks. He's Pete Najarian, wearing a hat for the first time in a long time.
Or Jesse Ventura, depending on. I'm back in Minnesota, John. I'm supposed to have lunch with Jesse, who lives right over there.
You got to get a picture. You got to get a picture of you and Jesse together, Pete. We'll tweet it out, both of us.
We'll do it. We'll get it done.
My gosh. And we both know he's probably headed back down to Mexico any day now, probably after Thanksgiving, right?
Well, that's his normal deal. But, you know, he had some health issues last year. He didn't even go down to Mexico where he lives down there. But he also, so he stayed up here. I think he's staying up here again. I'm not sure he trusts the health systems down there quite the way he trusts them here.
He's not into the coffee enemas.
Well, he's into a lot of things. I don't know if that's there, but he's a proponent of just about anything else, John.
I know. Folks, welcome. He's Pete Najarian. I'm John Najarian, the better looking half. Yeah. And Jared is sort of somewhere in between.
What a beautiful head of hair, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he does have I'm very jealous of the head of hair he's flocking down there. But we welcome you to the Rebel's Edge. As always, we've just got 1 minute of macro, 4 top stories, a couple unusual activities. Let's dive right in, shall we, Pete?
Bang.
All right. So what is more important today is, I think, the same thing Pete's been harping on every day, which is why we don't waste 45 minutes of this show's time talking about, oh, the dollar's weaker, so the market's higher. But that's the case. The dollar's weaker. Crude oil goes up on that. And the 10 years at 378. What do you got, Pete?
All right, we only got 32 seconds. I'm not sure I can say it all, John. Retail numbers were great today. That's it. That's the whole macro picture. I mean, people loved what they heard from Best Buy. They love what they heard from Dick's. They love what they heard from Abercrombie and across the board. So I think that's it right there, John.
All right. As promised, just 1 minute of macro, folks. Let's dive into that that BBY, Pete. I can't get these things right between Bed Bath & Beyond, Bath and Body Works, and Best Buy. But Best Buy had much better than expected numbers today. The stock moving to the upside nicely, which means that people are apparently putting a lot of stuff on credit cards, but that's still money in Best Buy's pockets, Pete.
Yep. And John, you know what? They've had a tough go of it. They really have. Obviously, a lot of different things through the pandemic, all the rest of it. But the other thing is that, you know, the profit forecast that they raised, that is a helpful thing. Obviously, we're always looking for what is the nugget and what's going to move stocks around. And I think that's it. Looking forward, we always want to know what happened this quarter, but you also want to know, okay, well, what does it look like going forward? And what kind of promotional deals are you going to do in the holidays? I think the combination of those things, John, and the positive sound from the CEO from that, I think that's what's pushing Best Buy up today. And the fact that it's dirt cheap. I mean, it's dirt cheap. So despite the fact that they've missed, I think, 4 quarters in a row on their earnings, John, I think this is why people are looking at this and they're looking ahead saying, you know what, things look good in the future.
Pete, I must say, I just bought a TV at Best Buy down in Puerto Rico, and I can't tell you how great the experience was. It used to be that you might go in there and try to find somebody who would be helpful to you. And I'm not just talking about that store. I mean, any of these stores, but went down there, asked the kid some questions, gave me answers like that, told me which TV would be best, for what I was looking for, sports and mainly just, Netflix and so forth, Pete. And I got a great TV for a great price. I think I got, Pete, an 85 or 88-inch TV for $1,000.
That better be a big house.
I have this total tech with them too, Pete. That means that they come and they install it for that zero.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's so many good things about Best Buy for people that aren't as tech savvy, that want Geek Squad or anything else. I love what they're doing. And like I say, just one more example of some positives that are out there.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at Zoom. Speaking of positives, zooming to the downside, Pete. Because well, October quarterly revenue and earnings did beat expectations. But guess what? What Pete was talking about as far as the outlook going forward, not so rosy, Pete.
Yeah, they talk about how challenging it's going to be, John. It was the slowest quarter of sales growth that they've had. I mean, let that sink in for a minute. That says a lot. I mean, we're talking about one of the things that I always look at, John. I look at the C-suite, I look at this, I look at that, but I always want to look at, well, what's the growth look like? And the growth does not look good. It continues to pull back and pull back and pull back. They're still growing, but it's less and less and less. That's a big deal. I think the in-person meetings, John, has become a big factor as well. People are doing that. You've been flying, not that you would ever stop flying, but you were in New York, you were at Fox, you've done a lot of different things. And that's exactly what we're seeing more and more of. Less people sitting at their own homes coming in, and more people going into the office or going to New York to be on a show or going to LA to be on a show, whatever it might be. We're seeing more and more of that. And obviously that's what's slowing down Zoom as well.
Yeah. And to Pete's point, folks, it was the 7th straight quarter of sales down.
Yeah.
So obviously we're coming up on 2 years because, for those of you who aren't real good at math, we've got 4 quarters in a year. So 7 quarters, we've had a long time of sales down, down, down. And for that reason, these guys are struggling to make their numbers. And I think you're right, Pete. I am not a buyer of this one, even at these levels. No. They got to show me. They got to turn it around, or we have to see somebody willing to take a shot on unusual activity and buy some upside. Haven't seen that yet. Right. All right. What about Burlington, Pete? Now, you and I, before the show started, joked a little bit about, that these stores. Yeah, it's true. These stores are crap. I mean, I like that they're out there and that they're a competitor to the likes of TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and so forth. But my gosh, I am not a huge fan of these stores. But it's up 15% today, Pete. And the only reason I could figure out why it was up, because all their numbers were terrible. But the CEO said, I'm not going to take it anymore.
He's mad as hell, and he's not going to take it anymore.
That's right.
One of the greats of all time. Well, John, when I look at this one, it's really amazing to try to even figure out anything I can take away positive. First of all, like you and I said, the experience there is about as crap as it can get, and I'm trying to clean it up to say it like that. I mean, you walk into this gigantic, building, and it's terrible. And what you find is pretty awful. So I'm not surprised at all that they continue to kind of have these issues where they're reporting misses for their earnings. I think it's 3 of the last 4. But, without bashing them any more than I already have, they did say they're upbeat about 2023, John. Now, they didn't say why. They just said they're upbeat. It's like, well, that's freaking fantastic. So your stock's down 50% on the year already, and you just put up another crap quarter, and all you can come up with is it's going to be brighter in 23. I don't know. I'm not part of that one, and I'm not touching this. I think it's garbage.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, Pete. I've been in probably 2 in my life, and they just weren't a great experience. I agree. And if you fill up a big box with a bunch of crap, that doesn't necessarily entice people to return. They have to have some reason to return. Like, number one, they had a great deal on good stuff rather than a moderate deal on crap. All right. Let's take a look at Dollar Tree, Pete, because this one is down despite the fact that they beat on earnings, but they expect to have higher year-over-year expenses in repairs and maintenance. They're not talking about supply chain there, folks. They're talking about keeping their stores clean. That's why the stock's down, because it's going to cost them more to clean the stores.
Well, the profit guidance was bad, John. That was one of the things. That's a negative.
Yeah.
You would think that the trade down thing is working for these guys. It's really not. It's a different type of a deal. But I think the biggest problem is, John, they think their sales are going to continue to be okay, but they're worried about some of the margin pressure that they've got as well. So, whether or not it's trying to fix up these stores in any way to try to suck anybody into them or whatever, but their report, not what we think, their report is telling us all of these things. So I don't see any reason I wouldn't touch this name right now at all. I still love TJ's. I love some of the other names that are out there that are probably a discount or whatever. But in this particular case, John, I just can't see a way of why I'd be wanting to look at Dollar Tree and say, you know what that guy said, that really inspired me to go out and buy a stock, because I didn't hear that at all.
Nope, neither did I. And I'm, it's one of those, Pete, where you see stuff on the shelves, you don't know how old some of that stuff is. I'm not saying it's past the expiration date, but it's probably right up against it.
Yeah.
And not a huge fan of this one either. So Burlington and Dollar Tree, nope, not really going to go there. All right. Before I tell you the unusual I have today, Pete, just a quick reminder. If you go to marketrebellion.com/edge, you can always watch these shows live on Market Rebellion, not just Twitter, not just YouTube. You go to marketrebellion.com/edge, and you'll see this show. Even if you type your name into it, you'll even get reminded when the show's about to start in case you're busy doing something. Yeah. All right, Pete, I'm going to throw out Gilead, GILD. Bullish call buying. These are December 87.50 calls. The stock was $86. So we both know that means $1.50 above where the market is trading right now, but they were paying like $1.30 roughly, Pete, $1.30, which means $130 per option, because every option's for 100 shares. So if you followed this one, you might put up, for instance, $1,300. That would be a thousand share position, and you'd be following until the third Friday in December. I wouldn't recommend staying all the way until then, but I certainly like the upside for Gilead at this level, Pete. And I bought calls in Gilead, GILD, today.
A stock that I've owned, John, probably for the better part of 4 or 5 years. It's finally performing, and it's doing an absolutely great job. And I like those calls, and I continue to like a lot of the different names in healthcare. You and I have talked about Merck and many of the other ones. Yep. I'm going to jump onto the other side, John. On a day where tech is actually having a pretty good day, you look over at what's going on with the markets or whatever. Certain areas struggling, certain areas doing really pretty well. Tech's done pretty well most of the day, up about 1%. But semiconductors were up 1.5% last I looked. And when you go across all those names, you look at the Microns, the Qualcomms, and all these names moving to the upside. I got one for you. How about Nvidia, NVDA? This one, John, is really pretty interesting because of the size and the short time frame these guys are coming after. This is already, we've gotten into the week. It's Tuesday. These expire by the end of the week, and they're buying 12,800 of the calls that expire on the 25th. That's going to be pretty interesting. Can it get up there? Well, they're buying the 155. So the answer is, I think they can. I think it's going to continue to go to the upside. They bought them for $1.80 up to about $2. I liked spreading this one, John. And that's what, what that means, folks, is I'm buying the 155s. I'm selling the 60s. I'm reducing some of my risk. Yes, I'm capping myself out, but I'm okay if this stock runs up to about 161 or more I'll be feeling pretty good because that collapse of those 160s comes pretty fast when we're talking about something that expires this week. When they started buying, the stock was about 153. When they stopped, it was just about right where it is in those strike I just talked about, 155. I like this call a lot. I like that buying. I jumped on it, John.
Yeah, well, like you say, stock was at the money, 155.
Yep.
Right now, Pete, it's just off the high of the day. High of the day being 159.26. So that'd be $4.26 in the money. Right now, it's 158.33. That's still $3.33 in the money.
Yeah.
So anybody that bought those calls early, like you said, Pete, is pretty happy about it right here. All right. Maybe give us a little update, Pete, on what's going on with sports. Mark and I had a fun time talking about soccer and World Cup soccer over in Qatar, and how some of those apps aren't working, just like the Taylor Swift apps with Ticketmaster.
Mark's a little bit higher brow than me, so he'll talk about soccer and lacrosse and that kind of crap, John. I'm sticking with football because it's football season. So, college football. What is this weekend? This weekend is rivalry weekend. So here's some of the great games of some of the ranked team great games. Florida, Florida State, North Carolina, North Carolina State, Oregon, Oregon State. By the way, Oregon State, John, this year, 8-3, doing really, really well. Pretty impressive year for them. Then you've got that game. Then you've got Washington, Washington State. All Washington has is the most productive quarterback in all of football right now. As you and I were talking the other day, transfer from Indiana. He's doing an unbelievable job there. So very good. But I think what is the game of now it might be the college football season. We all know Michigan, Ohio State's going to be a monster, right? Somebody's going to lose. Somebody has to lose that game. But how about USC and Notre Dame? And the reason that gets pretty daggone interesting, John, is they're playing in the Coliseum at SC. It's going to be pretty awesome. I would imagine it's going to be absolutely packed. Notre Dame has done an unbelievable job on this latest run. They beat a couple of ranked teams, and they beat them pretty good. Oh, by the way, one of them was number 4, Clemson. Clemson's only loss of the year, by the way, was to Notre Dame, which is keeping them out of the playoff picture. And then you got USC. You got arguably the best quarterback right now this year, might win the Heisman Trophy, probably should. The problem with USC, John, is they've got their one loss at Utah. That's their only blemish, but their biggest problem is they can't stop anybody. So they win by outscoring people, and they are scoring a lot. But the only way they can win is if they can outscore you, because they can't stop anybody. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, we talk about it all the time, Pete, and people have joked about it. The defense wins championships. If you can't stop people, then occasionally you get, a really big blow up like your Vikings had this past weekend, because they couldn't stop anybody. We knew that they were having trouble. They had a lot of luck from time to time, but they had a lot of trouble too. Yeah. And that was one of the issues with the Vikings. As far as college football, the fact that you only have to have that 1 foot down instead of 2, Pete, most of those kids are pretty talented and they can get both feet down, but you should, if you took things like that and put it in perspective, you'd say, well, you should have a real advantage on offense in college football over the pros, because they're both going to protect the quarterback as much as they can. Pros perhaps even a little more because they're worth so much money. But I got to think that, if you can't stop people and the offense has that little bit more of an edge, well, that's something that you're going to have to deal with, and probably not going to be in the playoffs if you can't stop.
Yep, that becomes a problem sooner or later. It bites you, and it bit the Vikings last week. You're no doubt about that, John. That was unbelievable, the beating they took at 40-3. I mean, for a team that was, they had the one blemish, now they got 2. And I'll tell you, the defense was terrible. And Micah Parsons, much as I hate to admit it, that kid might be as good as advertised, because he absolutely dominated that game, John. He was killing people at linebacker. By the way, there's some great dogs running back and forth and up and down behind you as you're talking, which is, they're getting ready for some kind of game. I don't know what game that is, but some kind of game. So we're going to
That
jump to
dog.
the we'll jump to the NFL, John. So we're going to go to who is right now maybe playing the best football in the NFC East, or well, in the NFC. So you could say Philadelphia, but they kind of slipped up. You could have said the Vikings, they've kind of slid. But who played really well last night and who's played really well of late, I should say? The San Francisco 49ers. Oh my gosh, John. These guys, I think they're a different team since the trade when they got McCaffrey. And that has added, they've gone 3-1 since they grabbed him. Their one loss, Kansas City Chiefs, who arguably is the best team in football, right? But this team and what Garoppolo is doing this year. Now let's remember, he was not the starter at the start of the year. They were trying everything they could and all their power to trade him to anybody in the NFL.
Yep.
Nobody bit. And all he's done, John, is he's come in there, he's thrown 15 touchdowns, he's got 4 interceptions. The guy is actually playing very, very well. You add McCaffrey with Debo, that combination has been unbelievable. And oh, by the way, they got the #1 defense in the NFL right now when it comes to total yards and rushing yards. So these guys are getting after it. They got the defensive side, they got the offensive side. They're on a roll right now. The record's not as good because they did have those losses early, but that was pre-McCaffrey. I think this team might be able to make a pretty daggone good run towards the Super Bowl, John.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're, the bettors are certainly loving that team right now, Pete. And you nailed it. As soon as they got Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers, and I wondered how long that poor kid was going to have to, toil away in that horrible situation, Pete. There goes the dog again.
One was going up and one's going down. I don't know what the hell's going on. There must be a stake at either end of that thing.
I think they just need a good workout. I'll have to go walk them. But yeah, I wondered how long he'd be stuck down there, Pete. And it's not that Charlotte's not a great place. It is a great place. But obviously the owner got real tired of the coach and jettisoned him. And, the McCaffrey, all he did was, shine every single week, but yet they were losing because they don't have a lot of other people there, Pete, other than Christian McCaffrey. Different story in San Francisco with all those weapons you mentioned, Debo, as well as, Garoppolo playing a lot better. So, yeah, I think they make a deep run into the playoffs. And we said at the top of the sports thing, the fact that defense wins championships, you can't count San Francisco out. If they get there, they're going to be tough to deal with in the playoffs.
Yep, totally agree with you, John. It's going to be really exciting. Hey, we got one more of these tomorrow before we get to Thanksgiving. Should be fun.
That's right. Wednesday, folks, we've got the 1 p.m. Rebels Edge, and we will not be doing one. Maybe Pete and I'll put up some tweets from his place up in Minnesota.
God, if
because he and his wife always put up a great spread, and I'm looking forward to seeing you up there, Pete, on Thursday. So until then, have a great one, folks. We will see you tomorrow.